Well, good afternoon to all the colleagues who at this time are starting to join the page. Welcome once again to the Sunday Reflections. So today we're starting a little late as usual. A few issues with the signal, but anyway, here we are. Today we're going to reflect on a very important and essential topic to understand the vision of knowledge. So today we're going to talk about good and evil, the concepts that surround these two terms. But first, let's say hello here. Let's see. Margarita is with us, also Jose, Alonso as well, and our colleagues from Medellin, Angelica, Emilian, Eric, and Emmanuel, and our wonderful friend Felipe is here to those who don't appear here in the comments, a very special greeting to each of you as well. And tonight, don't forget, we have a psychological death practice, relaxation, at 9 o'clock. And after that comes the video from our colleague, Viridian. Well, the background image shows a dark aspect on the left side and a light aspect on the right side. And above, there is a transcendental intelligence. There is an extraterrestrial intelligence. A very advanced intelligence. Here at the bottom, there's an ordinary person who is looking at the whole scene through a hole in the wall, a view of what these three types or three aspects of psychology are. Well, Julio just joined us here from YouTube. To the new participants, I recommend watching the first lecture from the Phase A syllabus, so you can clearly understand what self-knowledge is, its objectives, and if you'd like to join us here on Tuesdays and Fridays, the Phase A lecture is after 7 in the evening, where we provide all the instruction, the details, the reference points, the foundations, so that each person can work on themselves. Well, over here on YouTube, Hector has joined, and Carlos has also joined on Facebook. The same goes for our colleague Fabricia, and well, let's begin today's topic. Today we're going to talk about two aspects of psychology. They're called good and evil. Good and evil really don't exist. What benefits us, we call good. What doesn't benefit us, we call evil. In some parts of the world, many things we do are considered bad. They're outside of the structure of society, outside the structure of their ideology. And in another part of the world, in another society, that's considered good. So these terms, good and evil, depend on the concept that each person has formed. All right, but speaking in general terms, on a social level, we call it, or it's within the concept of good, to behave well. We have many reference points that we consider as virtue, decency, honorability, kindness, being a good citizen, fulfilling our duties, being a good religious person, or a good person who fulfills their obligations according to their religious ideology. Being a good father, a good mother, a good brother, a good uncle, a good friend, all the good concepts that we have considered to be appropriate, to be superior, to be correct. We handle that concept of correct terribly, and we call evil, well, perversity, wickedness, as implied in terrorism, murder, rape, causing suffering. So we call it evil, negative, bad, perverse, to make others suffer. And we call joy and all the virtuous concepts we have, we call them good. When a person feels honorable, feels humble, feels loving, feels like a proper person according to the standards and conditioning of society. People feel that they are on a higher level of psychology of being. But we come to knowledge and begin to see that there is the good and bad from the point of view of the self. So behind everything good, there is something bad, and behind everything bad, there is something good. There is a lot of virtue trapped within evil. There is a lot of evil trapped within virtue. Virtue from the point of view of the self. So for example, if you start to study the enamored self, you will discover that behind that enamored self hides a tremendous amount of pain that will surface later on. Because there are laws. So the person who falls in love believes they are going to live their whole life enchanted, know all the emotions, of course, the joy, the pleasure, the delight. And after a few years, they will realize that it wasn't real, that it was something fleeting. Therefore, if it isn't eternal, if it isn't real, if it isn't concrete, if it isn't solid, if it isn't stable, it's useless. And our psychology is changeable. Everything changes. The concepts we have right now will change later on, according to trends, to the times, according to social changes, concepts change. So we are trapped in that state of being good people, and that good part is part of all forms, what is called darkness. Understand darkness as the sleep of consciousness, because a person cannot see beyond their own concepts. So they act and live according to their religious concepts, family concepts, the I as a father, the I as a mother, the I as a sibling, habits, customs, codes of morality, ethical norms, religious or mystical or pseudo-esoteric ideologies. A person always has a framework that shaped their behavior. So, of course, when we come to knowledge, we start to realize that this psychology is useless. It's a decadent psychology, a psychology that operates according to personal convenience and according to the needs that one person has over another. That's what all emotions are based on, right? In affections, in fears, in loneliness, and in attachments, clinging, satisfying all pleasures and using other people to satisfy those pleasures and seek comfort. So we discover the evil that lies behind that good. Each person must discover it for themselves. We can't lay down phrases or expressions or rigid aspects like a message or a comfort, right? We need to avoid planting or beliefs or concepts or that, because then the person can't get out. So what we need is to reflect. What we need is to see and that's what we came to knowledge for. As we go about killing or working on understanding, eliminating all these good aspects, which actually the good part is the most complex to work on, because psychology tends to see the good as conscious. And when a person comes to knowledge and doesn't work on death, they reinforce the good part and develop the mystical self or the self that knows itself, or the Gnostic self, well, and they behave well, and the person starts to adopt those mystical, good, pleasant states, and they no longer make mistakes, but it's out of fanaticism, out of fear, out of ideology, because the mind tells them this isn't right, you shouldn't do it. But they do not observe the self. So they develop this attitude, and the person believes they are awakening consciousness, but they are not awakening consciousness. They are reinforcing the good side of psychology, but already from a mystical, pseudo-esoteric, pseudo-conscious point of view. But it is not true consciousness. True consciousness does not arise from the logical reasoning of the intellectual mind. The focus of consciousness is something spontaneous. It is something free. It is something that only manifests in the present. So all these good conditionings that we have must be observed and eliminated. Why do you love your partner? Why do you feel appreciation, affection, joy in certain circumstances? Why do you get emotional and feel so comfortable and so special when people say nice things to you? Isn't there behind all of that a certain deep sense of pride, perhaps even a quiet, lingering feeling of sadness? A sadness that was gently soothed and comforted by those heartfelt expressions you received. Perhaps you were applauded in public and felt superior, felt special, felt triumphant. That's good, but that's not conscious. That's good. When you go to Mass and pray and feel that you are with God, do you really believe you are with God, or are you under certain conditionings? Submissive, reverent, fanatical, sentimental, pseudo-spiritual. So we need to start seeing that, because otherwise we will keep believing that we are awakening with these kinds of good egos. That's why we need to study the enamored self, the friend self, the husband self, the wife self, the child self, right? All these selves that characterize a person's everyday life. And people are very kind, but why are they kind? Now with this, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be kind. What I mean is that one thing is the sincere kindness of consciousness, and another is the kindness of the self. So if we want true virtues, we need to kill the tender self, the affectionate self, the loving self, the kind self, the decent self, the pure self, the neat self, the honorable self. All of that needs to be killed. And from the death of the positive part of psychology, of the good part of psychology, and the bad part, now true virtue of consciousness arises, right? But then we must understand, we must be clear, we must observe that the human race is dark. It doesn't matter if it's the psychology of the father, the mother, the brother, the partner, the neighbor, the priest, the pope, the president. This psychology is dark, and logically so is ours. If we see this from that point of view, from that perspective, we could start to do some work, but if we don't see it, the work can't be done, because the person will defend their own criteria, their own concepts. No, you can't speak badly about me, you can't criticize me, judge me, condemn me, because I get furious and defend my honor. There is that good part, that honorable part that the person defends, the self. You see, wars happen over political, territorial, economic issues, and people go to war defending certain concepts of the good self. In the name of justice, in the name of freedom, in the name of love, in the name of God, we need to cleanse the world of evil. And all these religious, political, racist wars are created in the world. And in daily life, or on a personal level, it's the same. The same. That war between good and evil must be understood and must be eliminated. That is how consciousness will arise. Consciousness is the ability to understand why a person acts the way they do, a self. And once you have eliminated it, you can have control over your psychology. So, if people say you are very intelligent, if they applaud you, if they congratulate you, you have control. You don't let yourself be carried away by an emotion, by pride, by a feeling of greatness, right? You are simply calm and in control. You know that those applauses are for minor things. People applaud for many reasons. Because they are submissive, because they admire, because they are polite, because they don't want to look bad in front of others. Well, so many reasons, so many things you have to consider when these kinds of situations, events appear in life. When someone treats you badly, the person reacts by defending their honor or defending their status, their class. So you have to work very hard to understand that higher and transcendental psychology does not operate with that conceptual dualism. It operates with synthesis. Here we see it in the center, an extraterrestrial intelligence that these elements, these people, do not use the psychology that we use. We have a decadent psychology and a dark psychology. And they do not. They have a very clear psychology. They have mental abilities that are very, very developed. And their way of organizing their mind and their emotions is very different from ours. We have our mind and emotions at the service of the self, while these intelligences have their mind and emotions at the service of being, of wisdom, of consciousness, of love. So there is a great difference between a superior race from outer space and this planet, which is a zoological planet where there are only animals. The animal of anger, the animal of lust, the animal of hatred, the animal of the preference, the animal, the pack called family, where everyone protects each other within a genetic bond, where there are some nice, good states, but terribly unconscious, dark. So we have to start looking at this from that point of view. If we truly want to kill the self, because defending the self is wanting to continue degenerating. And remember, there is no good without evil, nor evil without good. So the person who defends the good is also defending the bad. And the person who defends the bad is also defending the good, because behind one is the other. And here it's about being conscious, understanding the good and the bad in order to bring out the conscious, or killing the good and the bad to bring out the conscious. The conscious is the being. The conscious is intuitive psychology. The intuitive intelligence that should guide us on this path of awakening consciousness. So we must keep silent, we must learn to observe, we must perceive from the point of view of consciousness, so that consciousness itself understands what is happening at any given moment in the day, in the mind, in the emotion, in the instinct, in sex. And in this way, we are no longer trapped within the concepts of good and evil, right? it is extremely important to keep that in mind, and to know that if a person truly wants to see results, changes in their psychology, they must fight against the good eyes, of course, and the bad eyes as well, but the good eyes make up 80, 70, 80, 90% of psychology. So that's why people don't awaken. That's why people always spend many years and the results have been minimal or non-existent. Precisely because of that, because the person focuses on thinking good things on both sides, generally and acting in a good way, and doesn't observe that. So how do you expect to awaken without observing the good part? Right? So they feel comfortable at home, they put on music, they feel happy, they start watching a soap opera, they feel in love. That's good, no? But they're not working on death. They earn some money, they're happy about earning that money too. Why aren't they killing those egos? Why do they let themselves be carried away and consider that to be correct? So logically, all the consciousness that is trapped in those egos is not freed. And the person keeps mixing the good with the conscious. Or they completely isolate the consciousness and continue developing the good part of their psychology, right? Well, that's what's important about this topic. Understanding that all philosophy, the schools of psychology, psychiatry, official education are based on what is good, on what is correct from the point of view of the ego, which is not correct from the perspective of balance and higher psychology, but rather from the ego's perspective. So, there are moralistic concepts, ethical concepts, concepts that a person follows to the letter, and those concepts make them feel very good and make them feel like someone who has intelligence and transcendence compared to people who behave badly. And it turns out that's not the case. This person who behaves well is now within darkness, just as much or even more than someone who behaves badly. And that's what they teach you in school, in high school, in university. That's what social customs teach you, habits, books, politics. The constitution of a country teaches things, rules, regulations, which people follow to the letter. Not all the time, but most of the time. Or they also feel compelled by fear to comply with all of this and believe that this is what's appropriate, what's correct, that this is the healthy way of living, that all of society should follow. And it turns out that's not the case, right? You have to eliminate both the good and the bad in order to bring out what is conscious, no? But anyway, in any case, each person will gradually discover this, will make efforts, and will start changing and seeing results, apply it as from the standpoint of consciousness, which is the position of intelligent, transcendental beings. We are on the same level as this society of 8 billion people on this planet. But out there, in outer space, there are trillions and trillions of awakened conscious beings who do not operate with the psychology punnis of this planet, where we are stuck in a madhouse because we are all mentally unbalanced and none of us realize it. Including the president, the teacher, the dean, the priest, the pope, the minister, the lawyer, the architect, and all of society. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or destitute or a beggar. It doesn't matter. We are all stuck in a quagmire, in a dark burden that we have created throughout society, cities, countries, provinces, neighborhoods, institutions, organizations, absolutely everything. Now, it's not about criticizing it. It's not about judging. It's about observing. So we didn't come to knowledge to criticize. We came to discover and to see that we are immersed in this totally unconscious state that doesn't allow us to see what lies beyond in the psychology of transcendent beings, of higher awakened consciousness that exists out there in outer space, in other races, on other planets, in other galaxies. Beings of consciousness and highly advanced intelligence who have nothing to do with the mental, emotional, motor, instinctive, and sexual atrophy that we have in this decadent race, in this dark race, in this race that many feel proud of, but there is really nothing to be proud of. What we need to do is start looking at all of this, awaken our consciousness, make progress, and logically come into contact with these superior, transcendental races from outer space. Well, with this, I conclude this very interesting topic. I hope it has been useful or has sparked some curiosity and a bit of motivation for us to start working on the positive side of psychology. Fundamental. Otherwise, we will end up developing like Hannah Smussen, or frankly, we develop the mystical ego, the self-righteous ego, the mythomaniac, fanatical ego, and we already start to feel that we are very special just because we have a few lectures in our heads. So we need to get out of that mindset and truly dedicate ourselves to the work of psychological death as it should be done. With this, I conclude today's topic. We are going to complement it with some concerns and some questions that I see are being asked. Well, over here, let's greet Harvey, Jaivi on YouTube, Pepe, Elena, Javier, Daniel, Carlo. Oh, well, I had already greeted Carlos. Consuelo on YouTube as well. Marta, Hector, Aranza, Alirio, Raúl, Daniel. Cap, Nog, okay, Cap. Revolutionize your upper world. And over here, Claudia all right. And on YouTube, Conciencia. Well, over here someone says, let's see. Carlos says, hello, good afternoon. Is self-remembering about becoming aware of what is happening within oneself, see, or is it simply feeling the body? Being in self-observation, in self-remembering, being there, tranquil, serene, calm, in a receptive state. Calm, living in the present. And well, the eyes parade by, they appear. So you see them and you kill them and you keep struggling to stay in the present, here and now, calm, at peace, in harmony, as it should be. Worry appears, anxiety, desperation, anguish, the affection, the thing, the sentimentality, getting attached to things of the world, to money, to the house, to the car, to the motorcycle, to the partner, everything must die. It is to remain in that state of consciousness, in that state of self-remembrance, feeling that you are alive, that you are here, that you are now. In silence. But you have to fight against the mad woman of the house, the mind, which loves to spill semen through the mind, mental semen, fornicating all day long. And it's thinking and chatting and worries and problems in the mind and fantasies and bitterness and sadness. Remember this. The mind is an expert at creating problems, but it can't solve them. It can't. The only thing that can solve the mind's problems is consciousness. And how does it do that? By killing the mind? If you let the mind act, the mind drags you into pain, crucifies you, tortures you. But if you are killing the mind, you are at peace. The mind is a malevolent, perverse, terrible force that in the end only produces pain, because it may generate momentary pleasure, but in the long run, that pleasure turns into pain. So that mind must be killed. Here Raul says que the volume is very low. I hope someone can let him know. Well, sometimes it's not on this end. Sometimes it's on the device you are using. And, well, you need to improve or check over there. Although, I always check here. But everything looks fine on this end. All right. All right, ready. Here it says, who else? Eric also says the volume. He says it's fine. Okay. Daniel, there's a phrase that says love goes beyond good and evil. Yes, that's true. But there's a problem. We don't know what that is. We don't know what that is. To love, we've dedicated songs, poetry, philosophy. And upon studying the enamored self, the self of love discovers that it is pure lust, sentimental and instinctive. That's the famous sappy romantic love. And with that, I don't mean to say that the virtue of gentleness, affection, and true love doesn't exist. But since we don't know what that is, we have to work and kill off false love so that true love can emerge. And that love is sustained and upheld by sexual transmutation. That is where the power of true love arises, which helps us, inspires us, and moves us to serve others. Because love grows with more love. Well, I'll call you K because that's, personally, I think criticism is the judgment of one little devil over another little devil. I don't know if I'm wrong. Yes. Some people say, no, it's constructive criticism. Well, now they're building with criticism as if they had wisdom. Each person must mature in their own way. Everyone will make mistakes and correct themselves according to their own understanding, not according to what someone else says. Because each person has their own wisdom, their own power, their own intelligence to develop. So each person realizes when they make a mistake and corrects it. Besides that, the being guides them. Sometimes the being shows them that they made a mistake. You thought you were right. And it turns out you weren't. So you have to correct yourself because the one who knows, knows. And the being is the one who knows. Well, here Revoluciona tu Mundo asks, so Luis, do we also have to eliminate those two defects? And how can we make people understand that the good eye is just as bad as the bad eye? Because they wrote good twice. No, it's about observing. Now, telling other people, well, if the person is radicalized in their religious beliefs, they won't change. Or if they're radicalized in their ideological beliefs, they won't change either. But it doesn't matter. What's important is to give them the option. And then on a personal level, you have to work on death. Seek that silence, that tranquility. It's just that right now it's very hard for us to see that when a person is conscious, the knowledge they receive it intuitively in a direct and comprehensive way. They don't need reasoning. They don't need the conceptual dualism of the intellect, because they're receiving information directly from the phenomenon they're observing. So they don't need to go through that process. On the other hand, whenever a person goes to school, to college, to university, what gets developed is the reasoning of the intellectual self. So the person ends up completely in a state of darkness, of confinement. But when a person has consciousness, they are drawing information directly from what they are observing. First, on an internal level, and when they awaken, when they are given the higher faculties of perception, they will draw information directly from the trees, from the birds, from the air, from the sun, from the earth's magnetic field, from the water, from the mountains. They will draw wisdom from everything. But they don't need that reasoning, because that reasoning is a stubborn and slow mule, a hindrance. And that's how we all are. So we need to put an end to that. Well, and we shouldn't keep believing that going to university is about developing talent, superior intelligence, yamin, and elevated wisdom. That only rots the mind, damages the capacity of the higher mind. Now, we're not against education. We're against garbage education. That we are definitely against. And we need higher education. Well, here comes a question from Revoluciona tu Mundo. Louis, what are other selves that relate to these two selves, the good and the bad? You'll find them in everything. Take out the list. What do you consider good? What do you call good? And there you answer yourselves. No, it's good to have lots of friends. No, it's good not to have friends. It's good to check out girls' butts. That's delightful. Someone else will say, oh no, that's bad. Another will say, no, masturbating is super good, delightful, very, very beneficial. And there's another perspective that says, no, that's very bad. The thief feels good stealing, the rapist feels good raping. For them, that's good. The drug dealer feels good selling his drugs, making a lot of money and having fun with that money. That's actually very, very good. Truly excellent indeed, without a doubt. But for others, on the other hand, that's really, really very bad. Honestly, quite unfortunate to say the least. For some, using drugs is very good, very pleasant, relaxing, motivating. And for others, that's very bad. So, our review within your own psychology, everything you consider good, and kill it. And then, the capacity for understanding arises. Well, Alonso Luis Carlos, how deep? This reflection today is so deep. I hadn't seen it this clearly before. Thank you for helping me look deeper inside myself. Thank you, my friend. Well, you're welcome, my friend. That's what these reflections are for, right? To try to broaden our perspective a little and have some clear points of reference so we can start working on these kinds of egos, these kinds of approaches. Why do I like so-and-so so much? Why do I feel so happy with her? Well, that's really quite good. So why do I actually want to win the lottery? That's a very good question. Let me just think about that for just a little while longer. Why do I support that politician? I think it's great that we all support him. Then, but why? There are a lot of justifications there, but beyond that, it's the feeling of good. So we need to look at that. Why do I feel so in love? There must be control, and when virtue is present, virtue is pure control. And there's a different kind of strength. There's appreciation, and there's affection, but everything is controlled. Not crazy or overflowing. Well, over here someone says, who else? Fabricia says, thank you very much. Margarita says the audio is good. Alonso, Luis Carlos, when you teach this knowledge, the first thing you get is criticism. I agree with that. Just as it is, without adding or taking anything away from what they say. That doesn't matter. People criticize me, condemn me, judge me, say all sorts of things about me. I don't pay attention to all those crazy people. You just focus on what you're doing. You're doing your work, minding your own business, and there are plenty of people who like you and others who don't. There are people who don't want to work on death. And they see you as a demon, as a black magician. They see you as misguided, as a fanatic. No, they're just people who don't want to work on death. So you have to understand. It's not about getting into conflicts or arguments, right? No controversy, because that's very damaging, isn't it? Because it really wears you out. No, you shouldn't pay attention to that. If you don't give value to someone else's words, nothing can hurt you. So, no, you're focused on your own work. You're striving to move forward and to see results, and whatever your being gives you, whatever it hands over to you, that's what's truly valuable. And what people say or don't say, that doesn't matter. Let everyone think what they want, say what they want. And that's it. Everyone's happy, right? You can't let yourself get caught up in all the nonsense. Yeah, that's out there. Ne? And people don't want to do the work. The vast majority of people don't want to work on death. So you realize they're just defending their egos. Egos of one kind, egos of another, lustful egos, sentimental egos, instinctive egos. And off they go. So you just have to leave them alone, let them follow their own path. Carlos says, does that sound okay? Depends on the phone. Yes. Pepe says, please share the broadcast. All right? Hear from Revoluciona tu Mundo. Luis, and what about this ego that says I'm a good person? I don't hurt anyone. I think that's what's important. And when I die, straight to heaven. That's the idea, right? The idea that most people have. No. The person is asleep. You have to kill that part that makes you feel like such a good person. Because when you come to knowledge and start working on the being, it opens your eyes and you realize that in past existences, you've done a lot of wrong. You've been in very complicated situations, in very strong degenerative states, and you still have some terrible egos alive within you. And you start to let go of that idea of being good. And you get to work the way you should. Well, here Itzia tells us, there are egos that use knowledge to get something, believing it's good, when in reality, there's often utilitarianism. For example, when talking about karma. Yes, it's about perspectives, but also, how can you expect more from someone who hasn't understood something yet? So, people mature little by little. If they actually work on themselves, right? Because if they don't work on dying to themselves, they never mature. And they start to realize certain perspectives are mistaken and they change them. Or you have to give everyone space so that they can develop, right? And so they can keep correcting themselves. Because after all, we're all improving. Each person at their own level. But they mature and transform themselves over time. All right, here's a comment from Emmanuel. Excellent lecture. Infinite thanks, Luis, for helping us observe the game of duality to eliminate both extremes and take away the power of dualism, to overcome entropy, and to truly die to ourselves. Yes, that's the goal of these reflections, isn't it? For us to become aware of the positions we should take and to be able to emerge from the darkness of the good self. Roxana says, sometimes you notice how some good selves lead companions of the past, like the dad self or mom self, which tries to please the children and do everything they ask, and the husband self or wife self, where if the partner doesn't like the knowledge, they would rather give it up than leave the partner. Yeah. That's how it is. There are companions who have left because of these issues of the good self. It's just that these are the most dangerous selves there are. Because the bad one and perversity, you can spot those more easily. But a charitable self, a decent self, a kind self, a neat self, a religious self, a sentimental self, those are very hard to see. You have to make a greater effort. Well, that's it. I think there are no more contributions or questions. So we'll leave this topic here. Thank you all very much for attending, for participating. And for those who want to join tonight, a little later at 9, a bit after 9, we'll start the practice of death, relaxation, and then the bonfire. Those who want to join, you're welcome. And for those who don't, well, we'll keep interacting in the conferences and everything we do here on the page. Tomorrow there's a reflection session. Tomorrow you're invited to the reflection. hopefully you'll reflect a little and share. The masturbator self, even though we've already covered it, but we need to go a little deeper into it according to what we were told. So I'm going to present it tomorrow. During the evening, reflection. Those who want to attend, you're welcome. All right, Claudia, let's answer here. Claudia says, at all times one feels good, feels fine. In that moment when you feel everything is going well, that's when things are actually going the worst because you can't see anything. That's right. That's the key. Why do you feel good? There it is. Why? If what I should be is focused here, conscious, in a higher state, not just feeling good, but beyond that, and that is the state of consciousness. Calm, serene, relaxed, observing, Atya, that state of comfort. And killing it. Killing it? Why do I feel so safe at home? Kill that persistent sense of security right now. Why do I feel so strangely comfortable just sitting here doing absolutely nothing at all? Why do I feel superior to so-and-so? Why do I feel so intelligent? That's the good part. Well, colleagues, friends, and brothers of the world, we'll see if you decide so tonight or if we'll interact in practice and during our companion Viridiana's trial run if she wants to. With nothing more to add, I say goodbye. Take care, reflect, don't lose your strength, keep fighting, and stay disciplined. Raise your standards. For those who are single, don't forget, you need a partner. Otherwise, that celibate self, that self of solitude, develops, and then you end up stuck with the incubus. Just imagine that. We need, or rather, singles need a partner. It's necessary in order to move forward. So keep fighting, rise to the occasion, seek to increase your strength so you can quickly reach that point your being demands, and so your partner comes to you. All right then. Well, Pepe says, beyond good and evil lies the in-being. Yes, the being. That's right. Well, that's all for today. Good afternoon to all the colleagues who are joining the page at this time. Welcome once again to our Sunday reflections. We are reopening this time slot to continue reflecting on many aspects of psychology. And well, this is a topic we haven't discussed in a while. We need to keep addressing it frequently because these sightings are becoming more and more common every day. And well, this reflection is or aims to help us understand a little more deeply everything related to this phenomenon. Well, we see it as a phenomenon, but in reality it is something natural in the universe. All right, let's greet some people here. Some colleagues, Milkiaris, Angelica, Luz, Margarita, Joanna, and also here Consuelo. You as well, as always, A. Alonso. The colleagues from Medellin, also for Aries Inner Revolution. Self-knowledge is also here, Hector, Emilian, and also here, Elena, and Willie. Join us on YouTube. Well, a warm greeting to everyone. In the background, we have a ship, a UFO, an unidentified flying object. Unidentified for those who don't know, because for those who do know or have seen this, they have already investigated a bit internally, not fictional investigations in the physical world. Or some who have had contact may already be able to move beyond the unidentified object. If you've already had contact, then you already know something. Well, Viridiana has also joined us here. She tells us to improve the sound. Let's look at the sound for a moment. And we'll improve it as best as we can. We'll do the best we can. Okay, just a second. It's still loading. All right, I think it should have improved by now. Fifth? I hope so. All right, let's keep greeting people here. Carlos. He says, "Good afternoon. How do I make extraterrestrial contact?" Yes, we're about to start the topic. Then, of course, you can investigate, absolutely. But they need to have certain merits. We'll talk about that in a moment. Luis is also joining us here. Margarita from YouTube. Luis and Margarita from YouTube. Susana, Flor. Eris is also with us this afternoon. And Consuelo tells us that the volume is a bit low, but I've already turned it up to the maximum. It won't go any higher. Sometimes it's not on our end, it's on your device. Because here, Mil Ciudades tells us the sound is very good. So many times it's not on our side. All right, let's begin this afternoon's reflection. We're going to talk about extraterrestrials. Extra, outside. Terrestrial, Earth. Outside of the Earth. All right, we need to understand several things. First, that this insignificant planet, a grain of sand in the universe, a tiny, insignificant planet, which for us is everything. It's like a cluster of bacteria in a particular organ. The organ is everything. They don't see beyond that. So, there is life throughout the universe. There are very advanced intelligences. Very advanced, and no, we are a race that is in an involutionary process, in a degenerative process. This is like a zoo where humanity, even though it thinks itself sane, is actually sick. Mentally, emotionally, and instinctively. And these beings, since they are very advanced, very intelligent entities, are waiting for us to achieve a certain level of development so that they can make contact with us. What would you do talking to a madman in an asylum? You'd be wasting your time. What would you do talking to a little animal? One that doesn't understand, that doesn't listen? You'd be wasting your time? They don't waste their time. They are waiting to see if anyone from these races regenerates so that they can develop the level of intelligence that allows, or rather, more than intelligence, the level of consciousness that allows contact with these extraterrestrial beings. All right, when we talk about extraterrestrials, all the concepts we've seen in movies come to mind, in TV series, in documentaries. And they have given extraterrestrials a connotation of physiological deformity and psychological evil. Giant humanoids, zoomorphics, rhetorical reptilians, insectoids. The Greys, the Nordics, the little green men, they have been given the connotation of figures strange. All of that is a mental projection of the same degeneration of the people who express it, who invent it. Extraterrestrials are beings who possess technology thousands and thousands of times more advanced than that of planet Earth. We have a decadent technology. We have a technology that is very basic but regressive compared to the technology they possess. If they wanted to blow up this planet, they could do it in a matter of minutes. But they are not evil. They respect laws and life, so they don't do it. They exist. There are levels, there are races, countless races in the universe. The majority of races that exist are nirvanic, but there are also second mountain beings who are advancing in their development. And logically, there are the masters, the self-realized beings, who are the ones that direct the entire process of creation, the gods. So we must understand that all this unhealthy speculation from people who make movies, who depict abductions, none of that is real. Many times people have problems with paranoia, with schizophrenia, that mixed with drug-induced hallucinations or problems that are already directly in their minds. And they project all of this, and then they claim it as if they had actually experienced it. That some mechanism was implanted inside them. Well, all sorts of things come up. Others of these, the phenomena are produced by psychic entities, black magicians or elements that generate in people certain conditions. And people assume that it was extraterrestrials who did some harm to them. They respect the law, they know it very well, they know the consequences of breaking the law, and they're not going to do it, right? Here, we don't care about anything, we break the laws, we do whatever we want. And that's it. We think the law won't come down on us, we think that things are the way we see them, that life depends on our ideologies. None of this is real. There are laws, there is divine law, there is everything that makes up the order in the universe. So, we are trapped on this planet in a very degenerative process, and all these beings help on the mental plane, on the astral plane, on the vital plane, yes? And right now, they are making themselves seen much more, a lot more in the physical realm, because we are at the end of an era and they are going to make contact with humanity. They are going to come out into the public eye, and they are coming to talk about who they are, the reality of the universe. All the scientists lie, they say nonsense. Now, Elon Musk is trying to go to Mars as if a little animal is going to be let out of its cage so it can go corrupt and spoil other races. A person full of anger, of hatred, a drug user, a masturbator, and a vulgar, dirty, full of depraved thoughts and negative emotions. Do you really think they're going to let him out of the zoo so he can go cause harm elsewhere? They're not going to do that. So people can dream, scientists can say they sent a probe to Mars. Just imagine a 2 or 3-year-old child playing with an adult, with someone who has a high level of development. In other words, they take those little ships, those probes, bring them to another planet. And here the scientists think they're on Mars, but they're not on Mars. And well, they make them see what they want to see. So they play with that. They're not going to let them go and map out the cities on Mars or the people on Mars or anything like that. So you have to understand that outer space is sacred, and to be able to move through outer space, you need to have power, to have created 5 internal bodies. All extraterrestrials have at least the 5 solar bodies created. Humanoids, us, the vast majority of humanity do not have those bodies created. We have lunar bodies. You can see how when an astronaut goes out into outer space, they have serious problems with their body. Their bodies get stretched, the body grows, they lose their sense of orientation, their biological clock is disrupted, they develop deficiencies such as calcium loss in the bones, they have circulation problems, they have orientation problems. In short, they have many issues because the humanoid body is not prepared to go out into outer space. These beings who move through outer space do have those bodies. Now, can they take a person inside a ship? Of course, but the ship protects them because they have a very advanced, highly developed technology. So they handle the 4th dimension perfectly, while we here haven't even started. We can't even enter the 4th dimension. They can do it. In the 4th dimension, they can surpass the barrier of the speed of light. But here we have Einstein's concept that nothing can exceed the speed of light. This guy never even came close to the speed of light. All he came up with were some mathematical concepts. You can come up with a mathematical concept for many things, but that doesn't mean it's going to work or that the mathematical concept precisely tells you what works and what doesn't. Because for that you need to have a deep understanding of electromagnetic fields and the depths of electricity of the electronic worlds. So believing someone who is asleep, meaning someone who comes up with theories and concepts. And with that, I don't mean that everything he said is a lie, because there are half-truths. But when it comes to the speed of light, it's a fallacy, a lie. So we need to move away from all those scientific concepts, because people tend to talk about things they don't know, about what others have said. These beings from outer space, it depends, as I said, on the race, because there are countless races. Let's remember that to become a true human being, one must have first transformed the lunar physical body into a solar one, the vital body from lunar to solar, and have created the astral, mental, and causal bodies. With these 5 bodies, a person can already travel into outer space because they have awakened their consciousness. They have around 70 and more than 70% of their consciousness awakened, while we don't even have 3% awakened. Just imagine that. So people who dream about talking to extraterrestrials, about them teaching us their technology, about them, healing us, about them, none of that is going to happen, because they are not going to get involved with this race, because this race needs to mature as a race, since there are certain laws and they are not going to break them. That they might have contact with 1 or 2 people here and there, yes, to leave some messages, but that's all, okay? The mass contact will happen, but they are coming to spark a revolution in people's minds by talking about what the universe is like, how they live, and that creates a very strong impact on the psychology of humanity. And if someone wants to be like one of these elevated beings, they have to work on the 3 factors. There's no other way, because no being in the universe, none of those who are in outer space, fornicates, none of them. We, all the time we fornicate. To fornicate means to ejaculate, to expel the sexual energy from the body. That transmuted sexual energy is what gives them intelligence, what gives them power, what gives them strength, what develops their higher extrasensory powers. Here, if every day we are wasting our mental, emotional, motor, instinctive, and sexual energy. So what kind of superior being could one aspire to be on this planet? None. Everyone is dedicated to that. Every day people are busy wasting their energy on their energies on all the nonsense in the world, on all the trivial things that don't matter. These beings are not like that. These beings conserve their energy. They have a higher mind that doesn't waste, that doesn't fornicate, a higher emotion, a higher instinct. So we have to understand that. We have to understand that this race is decadent, degenerate, it is dirty, vulgar, dark, and that it is very rare to find someone who wants to regenerate because everyone feels fine just the way they are. But if we compare a person from this planet with an extraterrestrial, here he is a monster, a sexual degenerate, right? He is a degenerate, a depraved person, a coarse, rough, unconscious element. He is a little animal with intellect. So if we are going to have any kind of a contact with one of these beings, well, we have to do some work. We have to reach a certain level, and logically we have to pay off whatever karma by we have in order to earn the merits and, of course, eliminate a number of egos, earn the merits, and have the opportunity to be able to come into contact with one of these beings. They are awake, we are asleep. They can see our mind, our emotions, our instincts. They can see everything that makes up our psychology. That's why they are awake. So they cannot be deceived. No one can fool these beings. Therefore, it's important to understand that they do not come here to cause harm. They do not come here to violate anyone. Those who are appearing and on the governments pursue them. They want to destroy the ships. And well, they are not going to let themselves be caught or anything like that. Likewise, they are not going to get into conflict with this violent, abusive, and cannibalistic race, because it's like when someone ends up on an island of cannibals. Well, they eat the person. They kill them. The same thing happens with extraterrestrials. When a country sees an extraterrestrial, the first thing it says is that its airspace has been invaded, that it's an enemy, and they send planes to shoot down the ship. And the truth is, the planet doesn't belong to anyone. Countries have never existed and never will. That is a dream born from humanity's greed, which divided the planet into countries, into states, into cities, into continents, separating all of humanity. The planet belongs to everyone. There shouldn't be buying and selling of land or anything like that, because the planet doesn't belong to anyone. So, we're in a really bad place, and they're not going to come and ask permission from some official or from a president or an organization or a society that has corrupted everything, that has idealized everything, and now we feel proud of a homeland that has never existed, right? And we feel superior because we're racist toward other brothers and sisters of planet Earth, and we don't understand universal brotherhood. So how do you expect to talk to an extraterrestrial? What are you going to talk about? About what? They're not going to get involved in nonsense, in stupidity, in greed. No. Any of these people on this planet would love to have the technology that extraterrestrials possess, so they could win the Nobel Prize and become millionaires. And all of this comes from the woe dark states of humanoid psychology, and then become rich and dominate others and be not famous so they can drain energy from others, and none of that is going to happen. Rather, those who are, or those of us who are fighting for regeneration, we will have or have had some contact with them, but they come to give teachings, right? For regeneration, to keep advancing in the awakening of consciousness. There are the nirvanas, who are men, who did not continue in their process of development. They became stagnant. And among the nirvanas, there are many different races. The nirvanas do not leave the galaxy. They don't have the technology or the power to go beyond this galaxy. Likewise, this galaxy, or any galaxy in the universe, is very large. It has around 100 billion solar systems. So it's not small, and they move throughout the entire galaxy. But to go beyond the galaxy to other galaxies, they need the second mountain, golden bodies. But the nirvanas did not take the direct path and stayed there. So they can only move within the galaxy. Now, the races that are on the second mountain, because there are races that are advancing, no? The whole race advances, or a large part of the race, or a certain social group advances to the second mountain. They can move in the outer space, the outer of the galaxy. They are intergalactic. That means they can leave this galaxy and go to another galaxy, right? And then we find the self-realized races who are immortal men, and these are the ones who can travel throughout the entire universe. And logically, the knowledge and technology they possess is extremely advanced. So understanding all of this and the unfortunate state in which the human race currently finds itself is important. In order to start making changes, to begin seeking to raise the levels of consciousness. The United States has in its mass possession some of these UFOs that it captured at the end of World War II or thereabouts. And they have tried to copy things, but they don't understand the technology being used because, the human race doesn't have those kinds of abilities, that capacity yet. On the other hand, the human race uses involutive infrared technology, while extraterrestrial beings use ultraviolet technology. So logically, understanding it is extremely complicated. Seeing, analyzing, or developing this kind of technology, right? So we have to understand that they also have biological intelligence. So they can develop a kind of humanoid to conduct research on planets and to be able to help the planet in some way, especially. So some of these extraterrestrials make use of these robots. They are robots, independent, but at the end of the day, they are still robots. They are biological robots, right? And there are also ships that are autonomous with no crew, and other ships that do have a crew. We have to understand this, and we have to prepare ourselves because at any moment they are going to make direct contact with the human race publicly. And logically, they are coming to reveal all the knowledge that exists out there, where logically in these superior races there are no religions, there are no politicians. The government is very different because the government is an order based on higher laws, and they don't use money. They don't have this kind of intellectual education. this garbage that exists on this planet today. They are guided by the true knowledge of the universe. They don't have families. They are born and, well, it depends on the level, right? But in the superior races, when a child is born, they separate them from their parents so the parents don't spoil them, because parents are the first to corrupt their children. They put them in a sort of a garden where they are raised by teachers, self-realized beings who guide them. So the child grows up with full power, not depending on sentimental elements or drunken, degenerate, fornicating, filthy parents, nor mothers with emotional problems, depression, or any of that which they pass on to the child. And the child develops with elevated abilities.